Yiratzon. Parshat Tazria Mitzorah 5781. Yiratzon al Imud Shebele Refuat Kol HaCholim V'tocham Tani Matod HaMargalit Yosef Yair ben Aviv Achava Harav Sivan ben Sima B'tor Kol Shar Cholei Yisrael. We're in the midst of a very, very unique week that we have Rosh Chodesh on Monday and Tuesday, leading directly into Yom HaZikaron on Wednesday, and immediately into Yom HaTzma'ut on Thursday. And so it's a week that we really want to try and understand in connection to the Parsha. What's the concept of Rosh Chodesh? What's the symbolism of the combination of Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzma'ut? And why is Tazria Mitzorah this year linked to this journey? And so if we know about the concept of Tzarat, there's a few things just to focus on. The first thing that we need to recognize when we're looking at Tzarat is that it's a very, very long process. It's an experience where we first have to identify, then it's questionable, then we wait for 7 days, then we check again, then if it continues, we wait another 7 days. And in this entire time, the person is in total isolation. And so these two things we want to focus on and connect them to this week. Obviously, the first thing being, why is Tzarad not something that could be a little bit more direct? He had Tzarad, doesn't have Tzarad. Why are there so many questions, so many variables, and then we have to put him in isolation for 7 days to clarify if it's Tzarad, if it's not Tzarad. And the second thing is, why does he have to be in isolation for so long, all alone by himself? And so I think that these two things can very much help us understand the inner message of Tzarat. Tzarat is obviously a disease, and we know that it's coming from different spiritual diseases. It could be Lashon Hara, it could be jealousy, different things that cause spiritual disease, and there's a spiritual disease which comes out on our skin or clothing or homes that reveals this spiritual problem. But really the difference between a physical problem and a spiritual problem is really measured in the amount of time. Physical problems are very often seen immediately, and they try to treat them immediately, right? So if someone has a cut, you immediately see the blood, and you immediately put a Band-Aid. The problem with spiritual is that they don't happen suddenly. It takes a long time. No one wakes up in the morning. That's what the Piaseczner Rebbe teaches us. They don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm leaving Hashem. It's a journey, it's a process. They begin from one challenge, another challenge, and then after a lot of combination of different difficulties, they end up, let's say, leaving Hashem, chas v'shalom. But it's never something that happens suddenly. Same too is also the process of curing ourselves from spiritual problems. Everyone wants them to change. No one wants to be lazy. That's a spiritual problem. No one wants to be jealous. That's a spiritual problem. No one wants to degrade other people. That's also a spiritual problem. But the fact is that even though we want to be different, we realize that it really doesn't happen immediately. There's a lot of time that we have to spend curing ourselves from the spiritual problems. Just as an example, me and my wife Tanya, Baruch Hashem, we just celebrated our 15th anniversary. And we often say to each other that we've been fighting about the same things for 15 years. And it could be that also Bezrat Hashem, after 70, 80, 90 years of marriage, we'll probably say the same thing, that we're still fighting about the same things. Because they're revealing spiritual problems, and spiritual problems are always revealed by the amount of time, either by the amount of time that they're caused, or by the amount of time that it takes to cure them. And therefore, Tzarat is something that has a lot of need for process. I think if we connect this to the week that we're in, we'll also see that it gives us a new mindset on Rosh Chodesh and on Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaTzma'ut. Rosh Chodesh is very, very weird that we say Chetzi Hallel. No one was killed on this day. Nothing bad happened. What's the reason? What's the need? What's the cause? That we could only say half Hallel as if it's not such a complete Simcha. And the answer is that the idea of Rosh Chodesh is connecting to the Levana, to the moon, that's always going through a journey and a process. And at the day of Rosh Chodesh, it's experiencing being the smallest moon in our eyes that it could be. And therefore, the concept of Rosh Chodesh is revealing to us this idea of patience, this idea of it's not a full Hallel. We're still in the cycle of the moon, and we're we're not yet in the time where the moon and the sun are both equal like they used to be, and they're in a journey, and the moon is constantly developing and constantly changing and going up and going down and moving. And so when we're davening in Rosh Chodesh and it's only Chetzi, what we're saying to ourselves is obviously it's a celebration, obviously it's a moed, it's something special, we wear special clothing, we eat special meals, we daven in special times, but with all of these specialties, we still say Chetzi Hallel, because we have to realize the beauty of patience, that we're still not there yet, and not fight against that. Accept it, that we're not there yet. And I think that that's the idea of Yom HaZikaron before Yom HaTzmaut. Yom HaTzmaut can be a very dangerous day, a day where we think we've reached the end, a day where we might think that we're saying Hallel because, the story has ended. But when they decided to make the celebration in 1948, it was because it was Atchalta de Geula. And the focus is the word on Atchalta. It's very, very nerve-wracking that we might look at Yom HaTzmaut as Geula. We might think it's the end. We might think that all we need to do is be here and then we're done. We've accomplished the goal. And the answer is that it's not true. The answer is that only if we realize that we really have to internalize Yom HaZikaron both on the pain and on the demand. It's such a pain that no matter where we look, left, right, forward, backward, everyone is experiencing Yom HaZikaron. A friend, a cousin, a relative, a family member. It's everywhere. And Yom HaZikaron is so much pain and so much tearing of the heart apart. And it's also a demand. It's also a demand to realize that it's not enough to remember if it's not going to become also an active memory of realizing that we are exactly like the soldiers. We're the same people, we grew up in the same land, and they're the ones that are demanding of us, not just to remember the story, but to realize that they're demanding of us to live differently because of them, through them. All the names that are written in our Sidurim that we think of every day of the people that we've lost throughout the journey of building the land of Israel, they need to be in our Sidurim, demanding of us on a daily level, on a daily journey, that we are not allowed to remember on the level only of something in the past, but it needs to be in the present. It needs to be something that we look at and we understand that we are not allowed to just be normal anymore. We can't be regular anymore. And that's what Yom HaZikaron is teaching us in preparation for Yom HaTzmaut. Don't look at Yom HaTzmaut as the ending. It's Atchalta. It's a beautiful start. It's an amazing start, but it's a start. And therefore we should be Zocha Be'ezrat Hashem at the end of this week to really dance on Yom HaTzmaut, to recognize that our feet need to stamp on the land. They need to press on the land. They need to make the land grow. They need to realize that we need to be planted in this land. And I think that the combination of all of this put us into a very unique week that's getting us ready for the celebration and the demand and the dedication of remembering every one of our chayalim, remembering every one of our people in our nation that were mamash taken because we need to demand of ourselves to live them, to internalize them, to have them be not only a memory, but a demand for ourselves to recognize the beauty of Eretz Yisrael, but also the beauty of the people of Eretz Yisrael that need to keep making it grow more and more.